Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. I hope your day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. We have got loads to get stuck into today. We're going to laugh at Manchester United because, let's face it, you got to laugh at Manchester United. And that was very, very funny last night. But that's not going to be the theme of the show because it is an Arsenal show, of course. So we'll talk about the Carabao Cup. We know who Arsenal are going to play in the next round of the Carabao Cup. We will know very, very soon who Arsenal are going to play in the Champions League phase. So we'll take a look at that in today's show. We'll talk about transfers, of course, as the Hincapie deal continues to rumble on as Arsenal look to get a deal done for him, which would in turn allow Jakub Kiwior to move to Porto and Portugal. So we'll talk about that. We've got some questions, comments from you guys as well to get stuck into. Reiss Nelson, who Crystal Palace have emerged as an interested party for as we head towards the end of the transfer window. Only a few days to go now before that window does slam shut. And what a window it has been for Arsenal. Just to flag up for Inside Arsenal Patreon members, the Arsenal Press Pass show has gone out this morning as well. James McNicholas, Gunnerblog, joined myself and Si for that. So that is there for you to watch or listen to today. And if you guys want to sign up, if you're not an Inside Arsenal Patreon member yet and you want to sign up and get access to shows like that on a weekly basis, then you can. The link is down below in the description. Right, let's talk about the Carabao Cup, shall we? And before we get onto the comedy that we all saw last night at Grimsby, we'll just talk about it from an Arsenal point of view. So the draw happened after yesterday's games, and this is who Arsenal have been drawn against. Port Vale in the Carabao Cup third round. And anyone of my vintage or slightly older than me will remember in 1998 when Arsenal played Port Vale in the FA Cup, not the League Cup. It was the first game of that run to winning the Cup that season, actually, 1998. Played them at home in the third round, drew 0-0 in a game I was at, an absolute dreadful game, and then had to go away to Port Vale for the replay, which went all the way to penalties. Bergkamp scoring an absolute beauty in that game. Port Vale equalised, but then Arsenal went on and won it on penalties, and they went on to win the Cup, that competition. Is that a good sign? Is that a positive sign? We will see. It's going to be an interesting game. It's not certainly not a glamour tie. I mean, well, as you say that, it's the sort of tie certainly the TV cameras and everyone like that would want in this sort of stage of the competition. A sort of lower league team getting one of the Premier League giants at their own place. So it's going to be a tricky one for Arsenal. We saw last night with Grimsby and Manchester United, it can be tricky. If you go there, you don't apply yourselves in the right way, or you're just rubbish like Manchester United were. That you can come unstuck in these games, and Arsenal will be very, very keen not to do that. It's going to give Mikel an opportunity, obviously, to rotate his squad. I think it's going to be sandwiched in between the Man City home game and the Newcastle away game. So you would imagine with that Newcastle trip to come the following weekend that he was going to heavily rotate, and the squad that he's built up and that Arsenal got now gives him the opportunity to do that and still put out a really, really strong squad. You know, it's been time and time again in the last couple of years that we've gone to a Carabao Cup game, for example. I remember Preston last season. I think it was Saliba started at centre-back in that game. We've gone to those games thinking there's been mass rotations, and then he goes stronger than we all kind of expect. I think the squad he has now means that he doesn't really have to do. He doesn't have to play one of Gabriel or Saliba. Injuries permitting, obviously. If there's a load of injuries before, then maybe his hand will be forced. But if everyone's okay, then he doesn't have to play both Gabriel or one of Gabriel or Saliba in this game. You know, so that's the tie coming up. I think it's the week beginning 22nd of September that tie is going to be happening. Arsenal heading to Port Vale. Manchester United not in that draw. I know this is an Arsenal show, but I've got to talk about it because it was really, really, really funny. 2-0 up, came back to 2-2, lost on penalties, 11-10 or whatever it was. Just very, very funny. This United team. Remember how they all celebrated playing well against Arsenal and losing on the opening game of the season? Well, since then they've picked up 1 point in the Premier League and gone out of the Carabao Cup to League Two Grimsby. And it was quite funny that the two penalty takers who missed their penalties were their two big new summer signings in Cunha and in Mbeumo and Sesko. This was really odd. Really odd. I don't know what was going on here, but Sesko was the 10th penalty taker. De Ligt took one before him. Maguire took one before him. The only player who didn't take a penalty before the sort of £75 million new signing striker was Andre Onana. That's so bizarre. I don't understand what went on there. I just thought, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Manchester United, but I just thought it was really, really interesting watching this game. A, the fact that Sesko took the penalty then. as I said, I don't know what went on there. I don't know what's going on with the manager either, because I'm not sure as the manager you should be allowing your £75 million striker to take the 10th penalty in a shootout against the League Two side. But just Amorim hiding away during the penalties. I know it's a superstition thing, and I'm quite a superstitious guy, so maybe I'm not one to talk here. But I just think for a manager, the optics of it look really odd. You're this team who are really, really struggling, and yet you're in a penalty shootout, and your manager's hiding away, not watching for the whole time. And you're letting your £75 million striker take the 10th penalty. There's just the optics of it are just terrible there. I'm stunned at the way Amorim seems to be escaping really serious scrutiny and criticism up to this point, because he's been absolutely terrible since he's arrived. He's made them worse than Ten Hag. He's had a lot of time. And I know it's early on this season. He could still turn things around. But, and long may it continue to be. I'm not pushing for them to make a change because I don't want them to improve. But I just find it really, really odd that the way he seems to be escaping really, really serious criticism. You think back to when Arsenal have struggled at times, when they were 8th. And the spotlight that was on Arteta nationally in the media just felt like it was so intense. And Arsenal were never as bad as what United have been. And yet Amorim seems to be escaping it. It might start to come on him now. Who knows? But yeah, it was a very funny night anyway. And hopefully one sort of night that Arsenal will avoid when they go to PSV. Obviously, Manchester United are not going to be bothered about the Champions League draw later on because they're not even in Europe this season. But this is the draw now. We know who Arsenal could face. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see all the completed pots. Arsenal are in pot 2, of course. They will be getting 2 teams from each of these pots to play. Can't play anyone else from the Premier League. So in pot 1, for example, they can't play Man City, can't play Liverpool, can't play Chelsea. So they're going to get 2 of either Paris, Madrid, Bayern, Inter, or Dortmund. Or Barcelona. So no, is that 5? Barcelona, Dortmund, Inter, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Paris. So it's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, is there 9 in each part? I thought there was 8 in each part. So they get 2 of those. And whoever it's going to be, it's going to be really, really difficult. Obviously, we know all about Real Madrid and Paris. Arsenal played Paris 3 times last season, Real Madrid twice. We all know about Bayern Munich and Arsenal. Arsenal played Inter Milan last season, lost in that game. I think I would want Barcelona from a purely selfish point of view because I've never seen Arsenal play in Barcelona, and I'd like to make that trip. I think Dortmund at home would be one that I would like to go for. You look in pot 2. I mean, there's not that many what you consider easy games. You could get an absolute horror draw in this. Really, really horror draw, really. When you're looking at it, you can potentially walk away with playing Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Napoli, Sporting, or Marseille, Monaco and Galatasaray. You could get a really, really tricky draw. You could get a nicer draw. But the draw's at 5 p.m. anyway, UK time. We will find out who Arsenal have got. Always a good part of the season, isn't it? Find out who you're going to get in the Champions League, and you can start plotting if you're going to make any of these away trips, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really looking forward to that. 5 p.m. UK time, that draw will be made. Right, moving on to transfers, shall we? The Leverkusen have been talking about Arsenal's move for Hincapie, and this is what they had to say. This was a sporting director saying it. If you'd watch it on YouTube, you can see the quote right now. It says, "We still haven't received an official offer from any club. That's the status quo. He's our player. He knows that we value him highly, and we would like to see him continue with us." So trying to play very much sort of hardball there, you would say, with Arsenal. But the two of them are very, very linked. As I've talked about, Kivior and Hincapie. Arsenal have pretty much agreed with Porto that Kivior can go. As I said yesterday, the sort of finer details are still being sort of worked out in terms of exactly what's paid, when it's paid, all that sort of stuff. But in principle, the deal is there, and Kivior is very happy to make this move. But Arsenal have spent the whole summer building up the squad, making it as strong as possible. They don't want to let a player go before they know a player can come in. It will be interesting whether that stance changes at the very end of the window if they haven't been able to agree a deal with Hincapie. Now, talks are going on with Bayer Leverkusen at the moment. Fabrizio Romano was reporting that earlier on today, that they're in direct talks with Leverkusen to try and get this deal done. Personal terms have been all agreed. Arsenal pushing in a similar way. It looks like the Kivior deal is going to be structured, so a loan and then paying on a permanent basis with an obligation the following summer. It will be interesting if Arsenal can't agree a deal with Hincapie, and when you're seeing the quotes coming out from Bayer Leverkusen, who know he's got a 60 million euro release clause, which you would imagine Arsenal do not want to pay. And when you see quotes like this coming out right now, then playing sort of hardball over it, suggesting we're not going to negotiate, really. He's our player. We want him to stay. He's got a release clause. We don't really want to go any lower than that. If that is the case and Arsenal cannot agree a deal with them, it'll be interesting to see if their stance on Kivior stays the same and if they keep him or if they do reluctantly, right at the end of the window, decide to let him go. Maybe it is that if they come to a certain point with Hincapie and they can't get it done, they look for a loan deal to sort of cover Kivior's absence for the season. I don't know. But at the moment, it's all very much linked. And from the conversations I've had, it's a case of a lot of things still need to fall into place before Arsenal give Kivior the green light to travel to Porto to complete this deal. But again, whether that changes right late on in the window, we will see on that. We spoke about Hincapie a lot in the Arsenal Press Pass show. James McNicholas was giving his insight into the potential deal and the player as well. It is a very interesting talking point, no doubt about it. We'll see what happens with that. Reiss Nelson as well, Crystal Palace emerging as a club with interest in Reiss Nelson as we head towards the transfer deadline. We know that Fulham have been in talks with Arsenal over Nelson throughout the summer in a bid to potentially bringing him back there where he spent last season on loan before getting injury and missing out in the second half of the season. I don't think Fulham are necessarily definitely out of the running now. I think they are looking at other targets, but I think they're still sort of around in the background somewhere, but Crystal Palace are sort of pushing to take a lead on that. £15 million is the figure that has been quoted in some reports for that Palace would be willing to pay Arsenal for Reiss Nelson, which I think is give or take around right. You know, I'd be quite happy with 15 million, I think, for Reiss Nelson at this point. I think it'd be really good for Reiss just to do this move as well, or get a move this summer. If he has to spend another year sort of floating around on Arsenal, maybe getting a loan deal with an option to buy, all that thing, your career is very, very short. And it does feel like for Reiss, this is the summer to go. So I hope something can be agreed for everyone, for Arsenal, for Reiss, for whoever signs him, because if whoever signs him, getting a good player there, who, if he stays injury free, could go on and, spend a really good few years with this team. So I just hope it's one that is done. 15 million to me. I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments below, but I think 15 million sounds about right at this stage for Reiss Nelson. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, or anything else, Hincapie, Kivior, or anything when it comes to the transfer market, or anything else you've heard so far in the show that you agreed with, disagreed with. Let me know in the comments below. There was some good training pictures yesterday. You can see, actually, if you're watching on YouTube in the background there, Kivior was in training at the squad. So he's certainly still, working as an Arsenal player while all these talks are going on. There was loads of good training pictures yesterday, actually. I just picked a couple of them to show you today. All smiles, obviously, ahead of the game against Liverpool. There was no Ben White in those pictures. None of the sort of players with the injury doubts hanging over them, as always, were included in those photos. So you couldn't see Ben White. There was no Martin Odegaard, for example, as well. What Arsenal are going to do if Odegaard doesn't make it is so interesting. We went through some of the options, didn't we, on yesterday's show? And the interesting thing, the good thing, is Arsenal have got so many options in terms of what do they do. I think it's going to be most interesting starting 11 for a long time at the weekend in the absence of Saka and Odegaard. Sorry, and we know that Madueke will play on the right, but what Arteta does in that middle of the park, again, we were speaking about it with James on the show today, and it's going to be really telling, I think, maybe in terms of the season and how Arteta is going to be approaching things this season, what he does in that midfield. Do you go with the more attacking option, the sort of show of faith in Ethan Nwaneri filling in for Martin Odegaard in that role in a game at Anfield? Does he play it safe like Arteta has done at times before and go with Mikel Merino and make it a much more structured, strong, physical midfield with Zubimendi, Reiss and Merino? I think the route that he's going to go down potentially could tell us a lot about how he's thinking for this season, how he wants his team to play and how he wants his team to be perceived. So it's going to be really interesting when that starting 11 is announced on Sunday. Right, moving on to a couple of questions and comments now before we wrap this one up for today. Dennis has got in touch and he says, I know we have some days to go in the transfer window, but I've been thinking on the Kivior out and potential Hincapie deal. This deal should spell the end of our window from a buying sense. So my question is to you, are you worried by how many players we've brought in as in learning the way we play. I cannot knock the quality we've brought in. And I do think it will take us to the next level, injuries permitting. But I do worry on how long it may take for some of the new players to learn, understand, and be able to implement our way of playing and patterns. Overall thoughts. Am I worried about that? I would say no. I'm not. I think when I look at what Arsenal have done in this window, I can't be worried about anything. I have to say, I'm so happy with the intent they've shown, the ambition they've shown. I mean, it will take some players time to bed in, but I think Arsenal have got a squad that's strong enough to be able to deal with that. And I look at some of the players they've signed, coming in from Premier League clubs. I don't think Eze is going to take particularly long to bed into Arsenal's way of playing. He's a very sensible guy, a very level-headed guy. I think he's a very intellectual footballer as well. I think he'll be fine. I think Madueke will be fine coming in. They've played with the Arsenal boys before in England, so I don't think those two are going to be have any sort of issues. I think we've already seen with Zubamendi that he's settled in very, very well already. Gyökeres, it will take a bit of time. I think the injury to Havertz has made that more difficult, but it also might work out well in the long run because it means he's having to play constantly week in, week out, and it's going to mean that he's going to have to acclimatise quicker than maybe Arsenal would have liked initially. And we're already seeing signs of him being able to score in the Premier League. We saw that last weekend. So, no, I mean, maybe the younger players, someone like Mosquera, for example, but even he's looked very, very good so far. Maybe it'll take him a while, but he's got, Arsenal in a fortunate position with a player like him that he can be allowed to be bedded in because of the quality of players that they have around him at the moment. So no, I'm not too worried, Dennis. I have to say it's not right at the sort of forefront of my mind when it comes to concerns I have heading into the season. Right, we're going to talk about the game at Anfield now. Obviously, I spoke about it yesterday quite in depth, and I listed a few different options in terms of what Arsenal could do at Anfield, how Mikel Arteta could set up in the absence of Odegaard and Saka. And lots of you have got involved in this. I wanted to share what some of you have been saying. We'll start with Tom there at the top. Tom says, "Hi, Charles. Love your content. I just think Mourinho should start because he'll have a better click with his mate Zubi, who he played with at Real Sociedad. It will give our midfield a lot more protection to cover counter-attacks, but also help us with quick transitions with Eze on the left and Noni on the right and Big Vic up front." QWERTY says, "Hi, Charles. I think you're a bit wrong about Nwaneri having to duplicate everything Odegaard does, such as leading the press. They can play the role differently as there are different players. For example, when you put Eze in midfield for Odegaard, I don't think you're expecting Eze to lead the press and control the tempo like Odegaard. They are different players." That's a good point. Well made. I think when I was talking about Nwaneri, and I definitely did say lead the press because that's such a key part of that role that Arteta demands from his players. And I think while Ethan won't be probably expected to do exactly what Odegaard does in terms of that, he still would be expected to do it. His off the ball work is going to have to be very, very strong in that central area. And I think last season, that's why he wasn't really considered as an option in Odegaard's absence. And I think it will be a show of faith if he is considered in Odegaard's absence for a game such as Liverpool away. I thought it was quite a good show of faith against Leeds to come on immediately when Odegaard got that injury, but it'll be an even bigger one to do it at Anfield. But yeah, thank you very much for that. Max says, "Nwaneri was one of our top performances in pre-season and played well against Leeds. He deserves to start. Also, I think the last 30 plus minutes were more important than the first 60. We need Mr. Clutch Eze at the late stage of the game, regardless if we're winning, losing or tied. We shouldn't mess around with starting a game with different systems in such a pivotal game." So you've gone with Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Nwaneri, Zubamendi, Reiss, Madueke, Gyökeres and Martinelli. Eze comes on around the 60-minute mark. I have to say, Max, I think that is a team that I would go for in this game. I think Martinelli has got a very good record against Liverpool. I think Eze, for me, should probably be on the bench for this one. He's had a week's training, and I think he can make a real impact off the bench as well. And I just think with the way that Liverpool play and the space in behind with the fullbacks, I think if Martinelli's going to start any games for Arsenal, it's going to be this one. And he's got a really good record against Liverpool. So I'd be going with that team as well, I have to say, Max. So thank you very much for that. A couple more here. Nick says, "Nwaneri is not a natural presser. He's a ball-playing 10. You need experience and strength. So play Marino on the left, Rice on the right if Odegaard is injured. Eze might be feasible, but I would look at Martinelli's speed on the left as Liverpool's high line. Trossard on a mare against Leeds. Arteta is a conservative coach. I think he'll go for this and use more exciting players from the bench." Did Trossard have a mare against Leeds? I can't even remember that. I mean, I was there, but I can't remember in the stands thinking, God, Trossard's had a shocker since he's come on. Yeah, but maybe he did. I just didn't notice. GB says, still not convinced by Ethan's work and ability off the ball in a game against Liverpool as much as I would trust him to do his thing on the ball. And Charlie says, the back four selection isn't as simple as the same four that played against Leeds. In my opinion, Timber has to start left back. Salah's the main threat, and we have to do all we can to nullify that. I fear Calafiori would leave us open to counter-attacks, just like at Old Trafford. Difference is Salah would punish us where Mbeumo let us off the hook. Even if Ben White isn't fit to start, I'd like to see Mosquera at right back. That's a big shout, starting Mosquera at Anfield. I see what you mean. And I think if Ben White was fit, that would be a really appealing option, playing Timber over there. But the fact that White's not fit or doesn't look like he's fit, I don't know about starting Mosquera at Anfield, even on the right-hand side. I would still trust Calafiori in that game, I have to say. And I think he's had such a good start to the season that I think he deserves it as well. But thank you very much for everyone for getting in touch. Appreciate that. As always, I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you want me to discuss in that show, you know what to do. Get down into the comments like everyone has just done there, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a great day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.